Hey, everybody. I think we're on. Julie will let me know if we're not, I'm sure. Welcome to the second of three in a series of very special webinars presented by the Human Animal Bond Association and Royal Canin. My name is Steve Dale with some exciting news because our special speaker and all of these three speakers, tomorrow night, Dr. Emily McCobb, last night it was Dr. Megan Herron, tonight, Dr. Liz Bales, they're world-class speakers. So I'm honored to sit here and get free CE just because I'm sitting here introducing them. Not a bad deal for me, but I want it to be a good deal for you too. So before I introduce Dr. Bales, I will ask Dr. Bales to be my Vanna White. So this is being presented by the Human Animal Bond Association. Human Animal Bond Association is a member organization. If you're not a member, we want you to join. And we've got Bling to encourage you to do just that. The first person, the very first person that joins gets this. It's called the Fur Ever Feeder. And as you see, it's a very special enrichment device. My bet, and I think I would win this bet, it was designed by Dr. Liz Bales. So it's designed, am I right?
It was, lots and lots of cats have this toy, and it is the trackball toy. But as you know, I am kind of obsessed with cats engaging with their food. So this is the Forever Fun Feeder, and it's this favorite of your cat, but the balls pop out and they have holes in them. They actually unscrew, but I need another hand for that. And you can fill them with treats. Let's see if I can make this little treat go in there.
Or food, I suppose.
Food or treats or freeze-dried treats or whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then your cat then plays with it and the food will drop out. I don't know if you can see this, but there's little wells and it will drop out into the well and then end up in the bottom, and then your cat will have to scoop it out to eat it. And the fun thing about it, there's also a laser ball that goes in the bottom that my cat has absconded with right now. But so your cat is going to smell that food in there even when there's not food in there. So if your cat liked playing with this before, it's going to love playing with it now. So they can get their treat and their fun and their laser light all in one Forever Fun Feeder.
And Dr. Bales has been so gracious to say that the first person, and that may have already happened while we've been chatting here, to join the Human Animal Bond Association, humananimalbond.net. Oh, there's other perks too. You get a free newsletter. You're helping to support a not-for-profit that supports the bond. Among other things that we do as well, we have conferences like this. And well, Royal Canin, and thank you, Royal Canin, again for making this possible, makes it possible to happen. The Human Animal Bond Association provides the speakers to help educate both veterinary professionals and once a month also on our Facebook page, the general public, about all sorts of things concerning the human-animal bond. After all, without the human-animal bond, I wouldn't be here tonight talking to you all. You wouldn't be here wanting to hear me, and certainly Dr. Bales would have better things to do. It's all about the human-animal bond, truly. Dr. Bales might not have been a doctor in the first place. She might have been an inventor, and she's really good at that, actually, and quite the business person. You know, moreover, I recall the first time, this is not the fancy introduction, but this is what I'm going to do. I recall the first time I talked and met Dr. Bales. I was at a veterinary conference, I believe, and Dr. Bales stopped me and said, I've got this idea that I know you'll like because you're the enrichment guy. So she showed me a product that actually, if I could stretch long enough, if my arm were long enough, I should have brought, you're going to show us right there, you know, and I instantly didn't I understand what that product was about. And I think I hugged you because back then we could.
I invented that. I think that was the first thing you said to me.
Well, because I had that idea way back when, even when I suggested people use a toilet tube, toilet paper tube, not a toilet tube. I don't know what a toilet tube is, but for toilet paper, you know, when you use, we all use it, right? You know, and you fold up the sides, you cut a hole in it, and same sort of idea. I'm thinking Dr. Bales lasts longer. and also is better in many, many ways. But why are we even talking about this? She will explain all of that. She went to the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, where Dr. Karen Overall was an influence. So, you know, she's got to be good just from that alone. She's on a committee for the Human Animal Bond Association, I think more than one committee, and therefore, we especially say thank you so much for your time. I won't take any more of your time. I just want to say, do consider joining the Human Animal Bond Association. It's an organization that both Dr. Bales and myself care about. I've got to pop out about halfway through this talk for a previous engagement, and the amazing, and she is that, Julie Legred will take over moderating, which is an easy thing to do because then we just sit back and listen to the expertise of Dr. Elizabeth Bales.
Well, that's a world-class introduction right there. I hope I can live up to it. And it's really the human animal bond, as Steve said, that made me become a veterinarian. And it is the human animal bond that I've been obsessed with. Because when it's broken, catastrophic things happen, no pun intended, but when the human animal bond is broken, our pets are in big, big trouble. So I want to be able to share my screen with you. Julie, is now a good time for that?
Yep, you can go ahead.
If I only knew how. It is not giving me the same prompt as before. There we go. Am I screen sharing?
Yeah, you're
Great.
good.
Okay, because like Steve said, when that bond is strong, we are at our best, and it turns out cats are at their best. And when that bond is broken, they're in big trouble. And as you can see here, this cat is saying, I peed on their stuff, shredded the toilet paper, barfed up my food, clawed up the kid, and now I'm going back to the shelter. And it's a bigger problem than you really could ever imagine. So I find that when we can approach an experience from the first person instead of, you know, an idea, things get easier for us to understand. And although this pandemic has been quite awful, one thing that is really good is it gives us a sense of what our cats are going through. And I think we can empathize with them now more than ever. So we're going to have a little fun in addition to all of our learning. And now you know how your cat feels. Lessons learned, sheltering in place. So just like your cat in March a year ago, you would kill to go out to dinner. You know how that feels now. And you're trapped with the same creatures day after day after day, sharing your space. That's not easy. And your kids or your spouse or your roommate may be really getting on your nerves. And for you, at least, you got to pick yours. Your cat did not. I don't know if you guys can hear. My cat really wants to come in here. She's meowing very loud. And I'm suffering from this terribly. It is very hard to stay fit in captivity. We're going to get into some of the reasons why in this talk. And you get the joy of sharing your bathroom now that we're all spending time all at home all the time with school and work. Your cat feels the same way. So now you know how your cat feels every single day. For us, some of us are back at work and vaccinated and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's going to be the same every day for a lot of our cats' entire lives. And I'm not wasting any time. Here is the bomb drop. Behavior is the #1 cause of death for cats. I'm just going to pause for a moment with that. I learned this in 2014. And it really changed my veterinary career forever, because I was at veterinary conferences learning about challenging and obscure diseases that I might never see, spending day after day and hour after hour laboring over these issues, which are important, but it's behavior that is most likely to be the cause of death for our cats. And at the time, there were very few people focusing on that, and even fewer solutions to help us improve our cat's behavior. So we know what happens when our cats behave badly. And the most recent data available that I know of, if somebody else has some, please send it along. But in 2015, the ASPCA reported that 3.4 million cats were given up to shelters and 1.4 million cats were put to sleep. And when I talk about this with people, my opinion, and I can't prove this, but I'm wondering what you all feel, is that every single cat that's in the shelter is actually there for behavior. Because most people that love their cats desperately, like me, who are also allergic to them, like me, find a way to manage it. Or if we're moving, we find a place to go where we can bring our cat if the bond is really super strong. Every now and then there's going to be a reason why someone can't, but the shelters are not loaded with 3.4 million cats for another reason. It really is behavior. And it's not just that those cats are being euthanized in shelters. Really, stress is causing illness too. So there's an activation of the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis that it doesn't just impact behavior and adrenaline and cortisol as we think of. It actually impacts physical health. And Dr. Tony Buffington talks about this with Pandora's syndrome. And it is well reported now. This chart comes from Dr. Sarah Ellis and Sarah Heath, Feline Behavioral Health and Welfare. And this is not a new book. Relating stress to lower urinary tract disease, anorexia, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, inflammatory bowel disease, over-grooming, hairballs, and immunosuppression, leading to more likely activated viruses of many kinds, and parasitic infections, and beta hemolytic strep infections. So when you look at that list and you think about your practice, aside from trauma cases, which are mostly happening outside, this is a big, long list of what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm very curious about the long-term, lifelong effects of chronic stress in cats. And that data is not available. But we do know that chronic stress in humans is linked to hyperthyroidism, diabetes, and neoplasia. So I'm hoping that eventually we get more funding for research in these topics, and Win Feline Foundation, that is now called Every Cat, I'm coming for you because I think that there is a likelihood that stress is at least one of the factors in most of these diseases. So where's the stress coming from? We are going to talk about the behavioral needs of cats and how different that is from what we understand, and how we're really not able to provide for it naturally in the human home. We need to make an effort to understand what it is and provide for it. And when we don't, that stress causes cats to behave in a way that we don't like. We call it bad behavior, but actually it's pretty normal cat behavior under stress to urinate outside the litter box, to develop even bloody, painful urine and even obstructions. It's normal for them under stress to be aggressive, destructive, have GI issues, and wake you up at night to eat. When those things happen night after night after night, every veterinarian has had the client come in at the end of their rope. They just can't do it anymore. And in a lot of ways, we can see the stress on their face. It is wearing them out. And I know I've been asked on many occasions that are heartbreaking to euthanize what is otherwise a healthy cat. I've always had the great fortune of working at a clinic that did not force me to do convenience euthanasias, and so I did not. But it's a really, really, really challenging and sad situation. And then it's not just the death from euthanasia, it is the illnesses that we talked about as well. So stress is highly integrated into cats' lives in just about every single way, in the negative, not in the positive. And we've got a really big problem because we don't learn about it. And when I was first, I went to Penn with Dr. Karen Overall, and so I got to learn 2 weeks of behavior on a rotation, and then I moved something so I could get another 2 weeks. But I was really lucky because and I actually don't know the number of schools in 2000 when I graduated that had a veterinary behaviorist on staff. But at present, only 5 veterinary schools have full-time behaviorists on staff. So if we're not learning about it as a student, how are we going to know? So we get this straight, that euthanasia as a result of behavior problems is the #1 cause of death for cats. And veterinarians, we don't want to talk about stuff we don't know about. So we kind of just ignore it. And I did an informal survey of board certified veterinary behaviorists who just see behavior cases. And less than 5% of their caseload across the board of the 15 or so that I was able to ask, less than 5% of their cases were cats, which is really interesting because we know that there are more pet cats living in homes in America than pet dogs. And yet a minuscule fraction of them that are having problems are going to the vet, to the behaviorist. So it makes sense. Where are they going? They're disappearing, literally disappearing. And if the sadness of that in and of itself is not a motivator, I really thought about this from an economic perspective. It's a very cold and calculating way to look at it. But the impact of those cats who are euthanized is a huge impact on our profession as well. There's data that 83% of cats go to their first veterinary visit, and half never come back until they are sick or in pain. And I would say, where's the other half? If that many cats are being euthanized, my guess is they are given away. There's many. Now, we don't have this number, but given away or euthanized in shelters. And what that means, if the only thing that cat parent would have done if the bond hadn't been broken was bring them in for routine visits, your clinic is losing $160 a year. And over the life of the cat, if all they did was routine care per cat, that's $2,240 per cat lost income over the life of the cat. And I think it would be another really interesting just data mining study to see how many cats come to your hospital for the first visit and then never come back. And we know from the CPA who gives us all of our great information, Fritz Wood, that it is far more expensive to go get a new client than it is to keep the ones that you have. So there's a lot of reasons that we would want our cats to stay in our practice, not just the empathy and sadness of the fact that this cat is losing their life, but financial as well. Because not just a routine visit in vaccines, a cat who is gone isn't coming in to have their mouth examined. They're not getting a dentistry. We're not diagnosing, treating, and caring for their kidney disease or their thyroid disease. These cats never get a chance. And it really isn't their fault. In 2011, the AAFP made it our fault. They called us out in a position statement saying that it's our job as veterinarians. You can read this in the bottom here. This is a quote. It should become routine for the veterinary team to inform owners of the importance of environmental enhancement and to provide those resources to owners. And in 2011 and 2014, when I'm learning this, I'm thinking, I'm not doing that. And I don't know anyone who is. And that was not okay with me. So why? Why? Because we think we understand cats and they're low maintenance and, you know, they're aloof and all those things. So are we really good at being correct about our interpretation of cat behavior? Hands down, no. We are terrible at it because they're just very, very different from us. So when we look at cat behavior through a human lens, we get the wrong ideas about what's going on. They're just too different from us. And this can be really complicated. And it was for me when I started out. It took me years to sift through and kind of boil down why. When you really try to understand cat behavior, it can be baffling until you say, well, what are the differences? Because if I understand in this situation, I would do behavior X. Well, a cat sees it behavior Y. They're going to see it differently, so they're going to react differently. And I've boiled it down here in a way that I think is really easy to understand. And you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. The number one thing in the hierarchy of needs is survival. We all have in our reptilian brains, animals and people, the instinct to survive. We may not even be conscious of most of those really instantaneous triggers and behaviors that we use to keep ourselves safe, but it's the number one most important thing. And human beings are a collaborative species. We depend on each other to be safe. And so think about this in your own life. You really want people to like you, or maybe you don't, but you understand that there's a toll. If people don't like you, they may not be as interested in helping you, and that could impact your survival. Think about if you ever had a job where you were the odd person out. It almost can make you feel sick, and you might quit that job even if the work itself was fine. We just so need community to survive. So tonight, if I all of a sudden was complaining of a headache and Steve was in this room with me instead of in beautiful Chicago, and I said, oh, Steve, my head is really hurting, I bet Steve would say, listen, let me get you some aspirin. Let me help you. It's our instinct to ask for help. And it's our instinct, if we can, to give it. Now, that's entirely different than cats. Cats are what we call a solitary survivor. They hunt alone, they eat alone, and no one is coming to help them. They do not collaborate with one another for their survival. So when they have a need that makes them vulnerable, their instinct is to hide that need so that it does not increase their vulnerability. So if the cat says, you know, in what we would like, as if a Labrador Retriever, you know, can tell you that they're in pain and they're whining and they're, you know, rubbing on you, and the ways that we can interpret pain from a dog, who is another collaborative species, a cat's not going to do that because they, in their mind, if they show a need, no one is coming to help them, and it only increases their likelihood of being somebody else's dinner. So it is not to their benefit to show need or to affiliate in a way of collaborating for survival. They don't need it. They can choose it, and they often do choose it, but they don't need it. So that is the foundation of starting to understand how different they are from us. If we see a cat and we say, well, they're just aloof, it's not aloof. They just don't need others to survive. It's a really different way. Don't take it personally. They don't need you. They don't need anyone. That's just not what they are. And it takes the judgment out of a lot of our interpretation. So if you're going to survive, you need to be safe. That's pretty much the first thing. If you're not safe, you can't really think about any of your other needs. So as a collaborative species, human beings find safety in each other. Cats do not. Cats find their safety when they feel threatened by climbing to a height or hiding in the smallest space that they can get into. So if you think about this in terms of your veterinary hospital, your cat starts their visit at home when that plastic carrier comes out and smells like fear and the garage and last year's visit. You're acting weird. Their survival instinct is through the moon. I gotta hide. I gotta get away from here. And so you go and get them. Maybe you do. Maybe you cancel your appointment. Maybe you're bleeding by the time you get into the veterinary hospital. And when you open that carrier, they might freeze, which is the hardest one to interpret. We might think that freeze is normal because they're happy to be there. They're not. They're terrified. But how many of us have had the experience when that cat jumps out of that carrier off the table, and everybody knows this, the first place they go? Behind the computer screen, because we've gotten smart enough to close the escape routes to almost everything else, but they want to be in the smallest space that they can find to feel safe, and even better if it's high up. So when you think about your exam room experience with your cats, you think places to climb, places to hide to feel safe. Now you're going to understand why they go where they go. A human being, when I have to go to the doctor and I feel scared, I want to take my best friend. That's how I feel safe. And your dog most dogs are like that as well. They want their person. We can calm them down. We can make them feel safe. We can't do that for a cat. It's not going to happen. A cat needs a small, safe space, preferably at a height, to feel safe. So if you're going to survive, you are going to be safe. The next thing that you get to think about is food. Now, if you're me, this is slightly different because I seem to eat from dinner time until bed. So we've added like a fourth meal in the day for me, which is indefinite sweets from dinner to bed. But healthy diet for a human being is 3 meals a day. Cats are really, really different. We can't seem to get out of our heads feeding meals in the kitchen for our cats. But that's a human need. That is not a cat need. And this is where things get really interesting for me. So cat eating behavior is different and really important to them, and really different than just about every other species. One cat in one day, if they're not being fed, has to kill and eat between 8 and 12 mice every single day. I find that just stunning. That's a lot of hunting. So Mother Nature gives them this incredible drive to hunt, or they'd starve to death if they weren't motivated to hunt all the time. And that translates into cats being one of the only species, there's a few, but cats are one of the only ones that will hunt in the absence of hunger. And if there's 3 or 4 mice available that they can catch, they will catch and kill all of them, not stop to eat, because they are so aware that their next meal might not be coming. And 8 to 12 every day is a lot. How this works for them is they go through this really sophisticated neuropathway of hunt, catch, play, eat, and then most often groom and sleep, and then do it over and over. And the hunting mostly happens at dawn and dusk. They're opportunistic, what we call crepuscular hunters. So they're not nocturnal and they're not diurnal. They hunt mostly at dawn and dusk because that is when their prey is available. So for a cat, mealtime is not just about getting calories. Mealtime is expressing that predatory behavior and then following it with a ping pong ball sized meal 8 to 12 times a day, mostly at dawn and dusk. And mice do not hang out in the same space every day. They do not huddle in a spot in your kitchen. If they did, or if they do at your house, I can get you a phone number of someone to call for that. But mice are out and about, hiding and scurrying and doing what mice do. So a lot of the time that cats are hunting, they are actually seeking out their prey. The catch and kill is pretty fast. The seeking and finding and stalking is the behavior that dominates this cycle. Okay, we're going to move on to communication. Human beings are high intensity, low frequency interactors. So what does that mean? We can sit down and have a nice long conversation, and then maybe I won't see you for a day or two or weeks, but I'm not going to come back in 10 minutes and do it again, and then back in 10 minutes and do it again. You would find a way to escape from me if I did that. It's too much. But we also in general have quite a bit of time that we spend together, and then a long interval between the times when we'll see each other again. Cats are exactly the opposite. And if you think about your own cat, most of the time they come for a short visit and leave. So it's more like coming over saying, hey, how you doing? Gotta go, bye. They come and they go, and they come and they go. They are a high frequency, low intensity interactors. And this gets us into trouble in lots of ways. You know, I was talking to a board certified veterinary behaviorist, and I asked her, what is a reasonable amount of time a person should expect to pet their cat? Because so many times, and I know we've all had this experience, we're petting a cat and we think everything's going fine, and then we get bit out of the blue and we don't understand what happened. She told me the reasonable amount of time that we should expect to pet a cat is 3 seconds. Can you imagine? That's 1 or 2 strokes, and then you stop and offer your hand near their cheek. If they engage you, you can do it again. If they don't engage you, stop. I thought that was stunning. Stunning piece of information that no one had ever taught me before, and certainly no one that I know is teaching kids that. And it can be dangerous because human beings expect this long, intimate interaction. Now, in the pandemic, we have been acting a lot more like cats. We're leaving email and messages for each other without being able to see each other. That's what cats do. They know innately that if they see each other and there's going to be a conflict, it can be life-threatening. Any conflict between 2 cats, they've got a lot of weapons. And if they don't kill one another, they can die from an infection, which is another thing that we see often in the veterinary hospital. So they communicate with these messages. They communicate with urine marking, fecal marking, and by scratching, which leaves both a visual cue and pheromones. They can tell how long ago urine or feces was left by the amount of detectable odors. There's so much information in the marking of cats so that they don't have to engage in this behavior with one another where it could be life-threatening. So I doubled up this slide. I apologize, 2 fun friend slides, but again, the high intensity, low frequency versus high frequency, low intensity interacting. And then we get to living together. This friend slide I never get enough of, but most people like to live with other people. We marry, we live together, we have children, we have roommates. Cohabitating is normal for us. It is not for cats. Cats are solitary survivors. Because they need to know they have places to hide, places to climb, that there's going to be 8 to 12 mice available every single day. Having a high density of cats living in one area is not necessarily consistent with their survival. The only time cats choose to live together in nature is when there's ample places to climb and hide, ample food, and even then, it's mothers that were litter mates or raised together with their kittens. When a stranger who is not part of this maternal group comes in, they see that stranger, be it male or female, as a threat, and they get rid of them. It is not normal for them to accept a new member into their familial group. So it's really different when we think about bringing a new cat into our home because we're friends. So we like friends. We think our cats need friends, but they are programmed to reject new cats. It's a really different way of thinking about things. And then we have smell. We talked about that it's really important for cats to communicate with smell, but there's also reasons that smell is really objectionable. To be able to get all that information from the environment, a cat's sense of smell is exquisite. It is, this data is kind of hard for me to interpret, but it's orders of magnitude, 30 times stronger, 300 times stronger than a human being. I've read all those numbers, and that's a big range. But in any case, a cat's sense of smell is significantly stronger than a human sense of smell. And human beings don't want to smell urine and feces. We love perfumes. So when you think about the soaps and perfumes in your house and fabric softeners, we really like citrus scents, lemon fresh, that kind of thing, or strong flower odors. And to a cat, that is like being locked in the car with your great aunt who, you know, drips in perfume. It's just objectionable. So when we get a litter box and fill it with this perfumed litter that is helping cover over odors for us, it is really almost repulsive to the cat. So their sense of smell is something that we need to respect in terms of engaging and being careful that we don't make a noxious environment for them. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about that litter box. So human beings would prefer that the litter box just didn't exist at all. It'd be great if we could just have cats that don't have to go to the bathroom. If they're gonna have to go to the bathroom, we would like the tiniest litter box that we can put in the most remote, never seen place of our house. That's usually dark, difficult to get to, and near some sort of scary machinery like a boiler, a heater, or the laundry, as away from our environment as we can. For a cat, that is horrible. Can you imagine? You have to go to the bathroom and now you're going to have to climb stairs and maybe get past other cats, and maybe you have arthritis, and now you there's these rituals of behaviors that Mother Nature is telling you to perform, and you can't even get your entire behind into the litter box. It's really, really hard for them. The AAFP tells us that cats should have a litter box that is 1.5 times the size of the cat from the tip of the nose to the base of the tail. You can't find one. It doesn't exist. We have to arts and crafts make them. And as you guys know, I make products and I would like very much to put one of these on the market, but the stores won't carry it. Takes up too much space and they don't think anyone will buy it. But that is in fact what we know a cat needs to be happy and to be healthy. So we got to put these litter boxes in, you know, we've all heard that N+1. However many cats you have, you need that many litter boxes plus one. But there is a whole lot more to it, and we're going to talk more about it. So when you think about minimum cat care, you know, you're sending someone to the PetSmart to get their supplies. They just adopted a cat. It's a couple of bowls and maybe even those bowls that connect. Those are super fun. And then food and water and a litter box. And you're gonna, in traditional times, you're gonna put that tiny litter box in the nether regions of your home, and you're gonna put that food and water in the kitchen, pushed up against the wall, right next to each other. This is not good. We have it all wrong. This is not minimum cat care. It's not even close. So this slide could be a little shocking, and it was intended to. I'm going to go back to my empathy statement, and it's sometimes much easier for us to understand when we think about things in the first person. So I'm going to ask you to go on this little fanciful journey with me. Imagine that while we were in the pandemic, the earth was taken over by giant robin redbreasts. And they got rid of the cities and they got rid of the concrete and they turned the world back into a beautiful forest, which was objectionable to a lot of people. And we caused a ruckus. And so they got rid of us. They just had to euthanize us. We were too much trouble. But some of these birds took a liking to us and rescued us. And so they've kept a few of us around, only the lucky ones. And I am one of the lucky ones. I was not euthanized. I was adopted by this robin redbreast. I'm so lucky. And she loves me. She would do anything for me. But you guys, I am like 40 feet off the ground with a bird, and I am living in a nest. And it's big enough for me and the bird, but not much else. And it is prickly. And I don't have a sofa. I don't have anybody to talk to. And I don't have, and usually, you know, I mentioned that there's some sweets eating. When I'm stressed out, I need my sugar and I need Facebook and a couch. I don't have any of that. I don't have access to it. It doesn't even exist. How am I going to get it? So I have no way to deal with my stress in an appropriate way. I'm starting to get acid reflux. I'm starting to break out and pick at my skin. My hair is falling out. And I get GI distress. And you guys, when you're living up in a bird's nest, there is not a master bathroom up here. So I have to delicately and carefully position myself over the bird's nest to go to the bathroom. And when I'm having an emergency, sometimes there's a mess. And she freaks out on me when I miss. And that just makes me more upset. And like, I'm really struggling up here. And now it's mealtime. So we know that robins will feed their young worms and seeds and berries from their environment. And that's probably healthier than anything I have eaten in a few days. So nutritionally for a human being, that's going to be great. So it's not the what she's feeding me, but the how she's feeding me. because a mother robin will regurgitate that food into their baby's mouth up to 100 times a day. So from the robin's world, she is loving me the best she can, like I am her baby. And that is so sweet, but it is not working for me. If she really loved me, she would understand and do a little research and know that human beings need minimally to eat 3 meals a day on a forest floor. She might invite Martha Stewart over, who hopefully is in a bird's nest nearby, to decorate a lovely picnic table for me and give me my meals this way, even if I'm going to get regurgitated mother bird contents. I want to eat it this way. So our environment impacts our health in many, many ways. Outside, a cat gets to choose. They're going to choose where they live, what they eat, who they interact with. They're going to make their own world. And a human home is lovely. It's safe. It's temperature controlled. It's all these wonderful things, but it's all those things for a person. It doesn't innately have what a cat needs to be happy and healthy. So, is the average home set up to meet the needs of cats? No, it is not even close. So that's where I come in. I'm really exhausted with the notion that we're putting down 1 million cats a year. I think we need to rethink what is the minimum behavioral need for a cat. And we need to start treating the root cause of these behaviors that we don't like, not the symptoms. A cat is a solitary survivor. They are a conflict avoider. They need to climb alone. They need to hide alone, hunt alone, scratch alone, and go to the bathroom in a safe place alone. As a veterinarian, these drugs are available to us, and we prescribe them. These cats are on their last, their last shot with their owners, and we need to quiet these symptoms. But is this necessary? Is this really what we ought to be doing? I don't think so. I think the feline behavior pharmacy is this information and the tool to meet their needs, just like the AFP told us in 2011. I really think it's our job to explain these things to our clients at every visit and to offer the tools to fix it, to help the humans get the things in their homes that the cats need. So, how are we going to address their safety? They need places to climb. One of my favorite questions that I get asked is, how do you keep your cat off the kitchen counter? And I want you to go back to what we talked about and think for a second. Imagine the average kitchen. What is the highest place in that kitchen that the cat can safely get to? The counter? So Mother Nature is telling that cat to get to the highest place that they can in any room. And if there's food up there, all the better. So we are asking them to go against their nature. And what we like to do is find some way to scare them out of it. So we might squirt them with a water gun, or we might shake a can of pennies. There's even a big, if you go on Amazon tonight after we're done for some entertainment, you can look on motion activated Halloween scary things like skeletons and witches. People, if you read the comments, people buy them for their kitchens to keep the cats off the counter. But what have we done? The cat has no idea what's going on, and now it's just scared. we've activated their stress response. So they might go pee in your living room because you just scared them. Instead, let's think about how to work with them instead of against them. If they need a place to climb, let's give them one that's better than the counter, easier to get up onto, and let's put their food up there. So cat shelves, cat trees, there's so many different amazing things to buy now. And some of them are very beautiful and very expensive. When we're done, I can show you, I made one for my office down here for about 20 bucks that I think looks great. That is a shelving unit with some sisal and some cut up carpet. So you can, if you want to arts and crafts something, have at it, or you can buy beautiful things. But let's get those in the places where your cat's climbing is bothering you and give them a better alternative that you want them to use instead of trying to uncat a cat. It is not going to happen. You cannot uncat a cat. You can scare them. And either eventually they're going to become habituated to what you tried to scare them with, and it's not going to matter anymore, so you failed. Or they're going to be terrified and then have to do something to release that fear and that stress. And that thing they're going to do, you're not going to like. So let's work with them instead of against them. Get places to climb for your kitchen, and then put their food up there or something that they're going to love. And gradually habituate them to climbing in the place that you want. Cats need places to hide to feel safe. And this is something that baffles me. Why are we turning the places to hide into the enemy when they could be working for us? Let's work with the cat instead of against them. So when you think about a cat uses the place to hide to feel safe. Well, why can't that be the carrier? Why can't we make something that we like to look at that it's also a cozy bed and a nice place to hide? And now let's put a treat in there every day. Not like you would for a Labrador Retriever. It's not sit, stay, here's your treat. Just toss it in there. Your cat will find it. They're going to smell it. And they're going to think, wow, this is a great place to hide and relax. It's just a little bit bigger than my body, which is my favorite thing. And there's food in here sometimes, just magically. This is awesome. So they're going to be releasing their safety and happiness pheromones. They're going to be getting their fur and hair on there. So they are leaving all of their reminders to themselves that this place is safe, it's happy, I love it in here. So when it's time to go to the vet, all you have to do is pull out the handles that also smell like them, because nothing's changed. Those handles were inside. And you just zip the zipper. You flick down the screen and zip the zipper. So you're not bringing in a new apparatus that smells like the back of the closet or the garage. You're not startling them or bringing in the thing that smells like fear. You're using everything that we know about cats to make their travel experience as comfortable and safe feeling for them as you can. So now when you get to the veterinarian, you don't have to pull them or shake them out. Can you imagine what that's like? If you're a cat, imagine getting chased around, put in this scary box that all of your senses are telling you is terrifying and terrible things happen in there. Then you get, I didn't even want to put handles on this carrier. People like to treat their cat carrier like a handbag and swing it back and forth. So now imagine being inside. Now you're in a car, which there's no way for a cat to really be able to process what that's about. Then you get into the hospital and you're going to get shaken or pulled out of the carrier. Or if the clinic is super cat friendly, they're going to try to take the carrier apart. Y'all, have we had enough of this taking the carriers apart that are held together with paper clips? And I've had bicycle chains, zip ties. It's like an episode of MacGyver there. And by the way, now you have to put it back together and you cut the zip tie to get them out. That's a fun trick. Instead, your cat has traveled in their safe space. Hopefully they watched the video and didn't swing them around. And when they get to the hospital, we're going to open that circumferential zipper that you see there, flip the top open. Hey, Julie, what's going on there? Okay. Flip the top open and they're going to get examined inside of their safe space. So you've worked with their instincts to give them as relaxed and happy an experience as you can. So when we think about it, we can use these instincts to make everything better. I think that's like a magic trick. Now we know cats need to hunt. They need multiple small meals that they seek out, catch, play with, and then eat a small portion many times a day. What we do is fill that bowl and the water and push it up against the wall in the kitchen. Imagine you are a prey species, but you are also a predator. So you're also a solitary survivor. No one is coming to help you. No one is keeping you safe except you. So in your survival brain, you need to be surveying the environment all the time to know that you're safe. But now the only option I have for eating is my food pressed right up against this wall. If nothing else, the next time you fill the dish for your cat, I want you all to pull that dish out 18 to 24 inches from the wall. The next thing that's going to happen is the next time someone walks through the kitchen, they're going to kick it over and curse at me, and I apologize in advance. But the next thing that's going to happen in the following day or two, every single one of your cats is going to eat with their back to the wall and their face to the room. It's really interesting if you think about it. They're under stress every time they have to go to that bowl and eat in a way where they can't comfortably survey the room. And now we've put the food next to the water. In nature, if cats ate their prey and left their carcasses next to the water every time that they ate, 8 to 12 mice every single day, that water would be horribly contaminated. Cats prefer to drink in a separate location than where they eat. And this is another thing that I would love to study, because we believe that cats prefer to drink from running water than from a bowl. But if you think about it, what differentiates every running water source from the food and water dish? Either it's a faucet, which by its very nature means it's going to be away from the food, or it requires a power source to be running, and in all likelihood, that moves it away from the food dish. So I don't have the answer, but I'm interested. Do they really want running water, or do they want to drink in a separate location than where they eat? I don't know, but I would love to get more data on that. So we have the food pressed up against the wall. We have meal times instead of this multiple small frequent meals at dawn and dusk. We have the food next to the water. So they can't pick up that bowl and move it wherever they want to feel safe. And if there's other cats in the house, now you're asking two cats to share a food resource. A mouse is not enough of a meal to share. In nature, cats are solitary hunters. They hunt alone, they eat alone. You do not see 3 or 4 cats banding together to bring down a fawn and then eating together. They hunt alone and they eat alone. So we talked about the cats that don't get along need to avoid each other. That's not going to be possible at a food dish. So when I talk to people about using hunting feeders and putting them around the house, you see the logic of you get to hunt over there and I will hunt over here, and we don't have to interact to eat. That makes human beings really nervous because we think, how am I going to know that each one is getting fed? How am I going to make sure? But what I'm here to tell you is most people, not everyone, because some people do feed in different bowls and sit in the kitchen and watch every morsel that goes into their cat's mouth. But most people just fill up a food bowl and have no idea what goes on. But because there's a heaping bowl of food, that meets a human need of knowing my food is always going to be available so I feel safe. But a bowl of food in the kitchen does nothing to meet any of the ways that a cat feels safe. We talked about territory. So there is nothing natural about two stranger adult cats sharing the same territory. In nature, it's only shared territory when there's enough resources and mothers and kittens being raised together. So when we bring home the friend for the cat, we need to understand that we've actually put them in a threatening situation that Mother Nature has programmed them to reject. So there are ways to gradually introduce them, and I would love to come back and talk to you about that another time because it's kind of its own lecture. But expecting the cats to be friends is wrong. And there's data that about 50% of cats who are adults brought in to share a space will never accept one another. The friends are for you, not for them. So places to hide, places to climb, places to scratch, and the toilet alone. Because if we can keep cats in their homes, we can strengthen that bond. Then they're still coming in to see you, and you can take care of their bodies, and we can save their lives by saving their relationships. And this doesn't have to be so hard. I have handouts that consolidate all of this information into really easy tips. And we can work together to find ways that your technicians can be transmitting this information. We can use social media to transmit the information. We've got to find a way that isn't so hard and so time consuming in a way that really doesn't generate revenue for the clinic to get this information into the hands of every cat owner at every single visit. So I think I will stop there and see if there are any questions on this material.
So we have one, Liz.
Yeah.
She's wondering how many cats overall are either left behind due to owners moving and cats inherited by a relative where in both cases the cats are turned into a shelter.
I do not have data on that. I don't know.
The next one is, what is the name of the cat carrier you're discussing?
So this particular one is mine. I designed it, and it's called the Sleep and Go 3-in-1 cat carrier from Doc and Phoebe's Cat Company. I kind of added all the stuff that I ever wanted into mine. You can use your carrier and leave it out all the time. It's just most people don't want an attractive plastic thing in their living room all the time. And it being able to open and close in ways that cats like is really important. But mine is the Sleep and Go, but full disclosure, I invented it.
All right, this one is coming from one of your friends, Patrick. Wants to know why cats sleep on keyboards.
It's such a great question. And I don't think that I like to use my science to give all of my answers. And I don't think there's data on this, but there's a few things we know. Cats work with pheromones a lot. And for a cat, they release a lot of pheromones with their paws. I don't know a lot about human pheromones, but it's possible that we actually release a lot of pheromones with our fingers. And cats like to smell like they're people, very similar to when you come inside and the cat weaves back and forth on your legs because your pant legs rubbed off on stuff outside and you don't smell right. They want to put their pheromones right back on you. So commingling with your scent on the keyboard, I'm going to say is one guess. And a second guess is that it's warm. And we know cats are really attracted to not hot, but that warm sensation. And then, we know that they like to control the environment. Cats don't want to be told what to do. They like to make the choices. And it's kind of funny that they are laying on the thing that you need. So they kind of get to be in charge. But I don't have data on any of those things. Those are just putting together a bunch of guesses.
We have a question. Do they think that the keyboards is a massage bed?
Maybe. We need some funding. We got a lot of work to do.
And then Barb would also like any recommendations or your comments relating to the challenge, meeting the natural needs in households that have both felines and canines.
This is a great question. And I like to be a little snarky about it. So I'm sorry. What is our question asker's name again?
Barb.
Barb. Barb, I don't mean this to you because I think you're asking because you care. But most people kind of presume that if you have a dog and a cat, the dog is really assertive about what they need. So we give them what they need. And we don't really understand what the cat needs. So we're like, oh, the cat doesn't have feelings. I have a dog. So my cat doesn't need anything. But we can do it. So here's how. Now, the number one thing that I try to do is work with what we're already doing. Too many changes can be really overwhelming. So I ask, are there times when your dogs and cats are naturally separated? For instance, do your dogs sleep in a kennel, or are they kenneled when you go to work? Or do your dogs sleep with you and the cats are not? Are there ways where they're already separated so that they could be hunting during those times and the dog's kept safe? If the answer is no, then we can look into one of my very favorite high-tech things, which is a closed door. We humans feel really some kind of way about shutting a cat in, but to a cat that isn't normalized to all this, a dog's a predator. So having to eat from a bowl while a dog is sniffing at you isn't great. So I have 2 cats and a dog. And my dog does not go into my daughter's bedroom. My cats get to hunt. Each kid has their cat and they hunt in the separate bedrooms, or the one kid will take both cats and then they can hunt in different places in that room. You're not harming your cat by closing the door. So a hunting room is another option. If you're feeling actually high tech and not my snarky closed door high tech, you can get a microchip activated door from, I think it's SureFlap has them. And so you could have a hunting room and then the microchip would go on your cat's collar and only your cat could get in and out of that room by approaching the door with the microchip collar. Some people also will use hook and eyes, you know, the little latchy guys. And instead of using it to keep the door closed, you use it so that the door will only open the width of the cat. And so then the cat can get in and out and the dog can't. Other people use baby gates, either that the cat can jump over, or they'll put it so only the cat can get under. I will say that cats, I made the hunting feeder with this skin because cats really like to use their teeth and claws in the hunt if they have them. And they want to take their meals where they want to eat. And I want them to be able to do that. That's how they feel safe. So your cat, if you're using the hook and eye or the baby gate situation, your cat might take these out to where your dog can get them. And that's a little scary for me. So I like the closed door, but every household's going to be different. And now I have 300,000 people who are feeding their cats this way, who've bought the hunting feeder. And I'm still learning from all of their great ideas. So hit social media and ask about that. But I'm trying to see what else. I also have the wet feeder, which is the same thing. I made it so it's like this soft-ish kind of foam plastic, so your cat can carry it to be able to eat the wet food out of there. So the not closed door situation for a dog gives me some concern because I have not figured out a way to make something dog safe that actually meets the needs of cats. And I see my job as meeting the needs of cats, and then we'll figure out how to take care of the dogs and the people. Any other questions?
That is it for right now.
All right, so
Awesome.
I am going to, I want to take a little break, but I'm going to get my next, why don't we give me 3 minutes for, what do we call this now? The nice word for bathroom break? There's a nice word.
Bio. Oh.
Yes.
Litter
And
box break. I don't know.
I'm going to get my next presentation up here, and it might just take me one quick second because I did not connect them. So now is a great time to go get your snacks. And I will be smoother with this next time. Okay. Start talking again, then I'll let everybody know to come back from the bathroom and their snacks. And we will move on to thinking outside the box. When we think about the behavior problems that send cats to shelters, the number one problem is urinating outside of the litter box. And we humans, the first thing that we think when we see that is, my cat has a UTI. They probably don't. And we're going to talk about that. If my screen will let me. So this is a huge problem. And really, I have never blamed people for getting very upset about this. The cat pee stinks, and having it all over the house is really not something that I expect people to be able to live with. But we need to solve it. And to be able to solve it, we need to be looking at it from a new perspective. So for cat owners, we think about ourselves. And if I had problems with my peeing, it must be I have a UTI, and antibiotics work for me. And so they're probably going to work for my cat. And some cat parents have even had a cat peeing outside the litter box and they gave it antibiotics and the problem went away. So just give me the antibiotics. What is the big deal? So when we try to encourage that cat parent to do tests, they don't understand and they get upset about having to pay for the test. I got to bring the cat in. This is just a UTI. Just give me the antibiotics. It's really, and I'm on the cat parent side. It's very logical to a human being that it's a UTI. We treat it with antibiotics. It gets better. Now you're asking me to bring this cat in, terrify it, and do all these tests and spend the money, when if I would just give the antibiotics, the problem would go away and the client would be happy. Instead, we face this. And as the veterinarian, it's exhausting to have angry people that we have to talk into doing a test that they don't understand, or many tests that they can't really pay for, don't want to pay for, and don't understand. So there we are with our dilemma. Why not just give the antibiotics? And if I give the antibiotics and it gets better, great, it's gone, the problem's gone. And if I give the antibiotics and it doesn't get better, then they're going to come back and say, oh, you were right, it didn't get better. So now let's do your expensive test. But I really encourage you to not do it. I am always on the owner's side, but we need to convey to them why not, so that we can also be on the cat side. Because just giving the antibiotics is not harmless. We got to think this through. So what are the causes of inappropriate urination in cats? Yes, urinary tract infection, urolith, diabetes, renal failure, or all of these and more. The answer is all this and more. There are many, 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 many causes for inappropriate urination. So why not just give the antibiotics? Well, we know that there's lots of causes of inappropriate urination. Is a urinary tract infection one of the most common causes in most adult cats, ages 1 to 10? Nope, not even close. In cats between 1 and 10 years old, the odds of inappropriate urination being caused by urinary tract infection are less than 2%. So you're going to be giving antibiotics. Let's think it through. That risk is higher if the cat is female, older than 10, diabetic, has a history of bacterial urinary tract infections in the past, or a history of bladder stones. But for most cats, if we treat for a UTI without a diagnosis, there's a 98% chance that you are contributing to antibiotic resistance, not treating the problem, and not helping the cat. So I encourage you to make a different choice. Please don't guess. So what are we going to do? Let's dig into the algorithm. So what is this proper workup for peeing outside the litter box? Well, buckle up. And this is the part where it gets hard to convince cat parents to do it, because to be getting any kind of good information, it is a couple of tests and they cost money. But it's really important. This could be saving your cat's life. We need to do a complete urinalysis, and we know a UA, big deal. Well, what does it really mean to do a proper complete UA for a cat? So it's a UA that is obtained via cystocentesis. Then we do a dipstick. We want to look at the sediment, and we want to do a urine-specific gravity. So does the amount of time that a sample sits have an impact on the findings? Because at many of our hospitals, we get a sample and we will get a better price for the client if we send the urine with the blood to go to the lab. But that means that sample can be sitting around for many, many hours. So is that significant? Does that even matter? It does matter, because over time and with decreased temperatures, just by being outside the body, crystals form. And those crystals may not be there inside of the cat. So you could be getting a finding that is inaccurate if you're waiting to read your sample, or you're waiting for the lab to read the sample. So you want to analyze that sample within 60 minutes of collection. That means you got to learn how to read them in your hospital. So what if you see red cells or white cells on your sediment? Okay, then can you confirm that, yep, there's red cells and white cells, so it is a UTI? Nope. You can have hematuria, proteinuria, pyuria as a result of infection or inflammation of the lower urinary tract. So you can't say that it is a bacterial UTI just by seeing red cells and white cells. You can confirm if you see intracellular bacteria. And then you want to send that urine for a culture and sensitivity. Extracellular bacteria and debris don't necessarily indicate a bacterial infection. Antech has a new test called First Track. And this is a rapid urine culture where you're going to get your answers instead of 2 or 3 or 4 days with a traditional culture. Antech has developed technology where you can take this urine, put it into a culture broth, and then as the bacteria does or doesn't grow, the lab measures the amount of light that scatters through the sample based on the turbidity of the broth. They take these measurements about every 5 minutes. And if the turbidity is increasing exponentially, that tells them that there is a replicating bacteria in the urine sample, meaning that there is a bacterial UTI. And then you can get the rest of the culture results in 3 to 4 days. But you could be treating when you get that news that, yes, in fact, it is representative of a urinary tract infection. Right now, the accuracy is pretty good at 95%, and it's going to get you results in a day instead of 3 to 4 days, and you don't need much urine. So you can have a lot more confidence that you're doing the right thing by waiting just one day and not many, and giving those antibiotics once you get these results. It's a new test, which always keeps me, questioning things until we get a lot of feedback on how it's going. But it's pretty exciting to be able to have that in a day instead of 3 to 4 days. So back to those crystals that you see when you examine the urine within 60 minutes. If you see crystals, does that mean that there's something wrong in a cat? Are you always having a pathologic condition if you see struvite or oxalate crystals? Nope. You can have crystals in cat urine that is not pathologic. This can happen in healthy cats. And if there's no history of a stone formation, you don't have to treat it. This can just be the way it is. I double clicked here. Let's see if I can go back. Okay, so red cells, white cells, crystals, debris, extracellular bacteria do not give you a diagnosis of a bacterial urinary tract infection. If you see intracellular bacteria, then you're going to send for either the Antec test or straight to culture for a UTI. If you have a positive culture, then you can say, yes, it's a urinary tract infection. If you have an immunocompromised patient, go ahead and send that culture. And if it's positive, that's when you can say you have a UTI. And then you're going to treat the culture based on the sensitivity. Now, when I was first a vet, we treated everything for 14 days minimum. And we would have people come back for a recheck, like the day we were going to stop or 2 days before we were going to stop, and make sure that there was no ongoing disease before we would discontinue. Turns out we don't need to do any of that. Research now suggests that 3 to 5 days of treatment may be more appropriate, and that doing this intra or post-treatment urinalysis and culture doesn't really change the outcome. So we just spent a whole lot of time on a disease that has a less than 2% likelihood of being the cause of our problem. So what is the problem then? Well, feline idiopathic cystitis is 50, depending on the study that you read, it's either 55 or 79% likely that that is causing the problem. And then the numbers drop way down to you're way more likely to have a stone than an infection, or a urethral plug that's causing it, and then about equally as likely to have cancer. And then the numbers go way down with congenital anatomical defects, trauma, and neurologic disorders. So the next step in your workup should be imaging. And there are some stones that are radiolucent. So if you have the opportunity to ultrasound, that is your next best bet. And every cat that's urinating outside the litter box should have an ultrasound of the bladder. Because if you skip imaging, you're going to be missing 15 to 20% of these cats that do have a urolith. Most commonly, we see either calcium oxalate or struvite stones, and calcium oxalates are more common in older males. They require surgical removal and will not dissolve with diet. And increased water intake helps to prevent recurrence. Struvite stones are more common in young female cats, and we can treat them with a dissolution diet that might make them go away and not require surgery and can prevent them from reforming. So ultrasound can also show you bladder cancer. That the statistics are pretty grim, but this is also in a condition that's way more common in older cats. So again, we're not going to guess, because treating for that less than 2% likelihood of infection, you're better statistically treating for a stone, and way better, if you're going to bet your odds in Vegas and guess, it's going to be idiopathic cystitis. So we're going to do the proper workup to rule out the other causes of urinating outside the litter box, and then treat what we find. So if you had to guess, it's probably not a UTI. It probably is feline interstitial cystitis. So we talked in the last lecture about how different people think than cats think. So if there's not a problem in the bladder, it must be something that is bothering the cat right where they're peeing. And when I graduated school, I was taught this, so that it was probably they were marking because of outside cat, and so the problem was happening right where you found the urine. Now we know that that is not true, that the problem may or may not be anywhere near the location of the urine. So you can't really use the X marks the spot to help understand why your cat is urinating outside the litter box. To find out why, we're going to go back in time to 1983, when a young Dr. Tony Buffington did something thrilling. That's actually not him. He did not audition for the Michael Jackson Thriller video, but he did do something really thrilling and outside the box. Dr. Buffington was trying to cure cats who had urinary tract signs. So there was a lot of talk at the time that feline diets were too high in magnesium, and that elevated magnesium was causing the urinary pH to rise. That elevated urinary pH would cause struvite crystals or stones, and that this was the cause of lower urinary tract disease in cats. So he got some funding and ran a test, and he found that that was not the case at all. When he lowered the magnesium and lowered the urinary pH, struvite crystals didn't form, but calcium oxalate crystals did, and calcium oxalate stones did. And there was no difference in the incidence of lower urinary tract disease based on a change in magnesium or pH. So wasn't looking like it was the food. So in the 90s, Dr. Buffington was still hot on this trail, and he applied for an NIH grant to use cats as a model for human interstitial cystitis. And he went about his work collecting his population. So he was looking for 200 cats that had intractable lower urinary tract signs. So they were getting blocked over and over, or they just wouldn't stop peeing around the house. And he was at Ohio State and put out the word to all the local veterinarians that when a client got to the end of the rope with their cat, please don't euthanize them. Please send them to me to study. So he did. He got those 200 cats that were going to be euthanized. And started evaluating them when he was in the intake process, and he found that most of them had other illnesses in addition to their urinary disease. He thought was pretty interesting. And he decided that since those cats were going to be with them for the rest of their lives, that he's a nice guy. He wanted to make their environment nice for them. So he gave them territory, he gave them places to climb, places to hide. He gave them food puzzles and a way to hunt for their food, and started his study. Only they didn't have any more signs of disease. Once those cats were put in what they called an environmentally enriched colony, they no longer had any symptoms. He cured them, so he couldn't study them. So Dr. Buffington has spent much of the rest of his career exploring what he calls Pandora syndrome. In Pandora syndrome, the cats had a history of a traumatic experience, either in utero or in their very early kittenhood. This experience rewired their stress response, and they had pathologic responses to stress. These responses were not just psychological, these were physical responses. And one of the main characteristics was a change in mucous membrane permeability. So these cats had skin disease, respiratory disease, GI disease, and immune disease, in addition to their urinary symptoms. So if we go back to the previous talk and think about that big long list of physical illnesses that cats get in response to stress, this may have a lot to do with it. So these cats may have all of these things. They may have one at a time. They may chronically get one or two of them, but Pandora syndrome doesn't necessarily mean just the urinary disease. Pandora syndrome is this Pandora's box of inappropriate responses to stress that cause physical disease. And interestingly, he actually was able to see physical changes on histopathology. So the lamina propria of the bladder and the proximal urethra showed an increase in degranulated mast cells. There was an accumulation of leukocytes and an increase in COX-1 expression and neovascularization and alterations in elastin. So the chronic inflammation was leading to tissue remodeling. It not only was a physical disease acutely, but chronically as well. So now we have these structural changes that cause alterations in the signaling pathways and increased pain. So the poor things, they get into a vicious cycle where things just spiral and get worse and worse and worse. And again, the diagnosis is based on a history of early life trauma, and then the health history of the recurring comorbidities. Often these are associated with some sort of environmental stress and a general demeanor in the cats of being fearful or anxious. A lot of times we don't get the benefit of knowing anything about the early life history of our cat. So all we can go on are the immediate history and the clinical signs. So as far as the urinary symptoms go, we can see this painful urination, urinating outside the litter box, often with blood. And we'll see red cells, white cells, crystals, and debris in that urine because of the inflammation, not because of infection. And those elements can aggregate and form a plug that becomes an obstruction in male cats. And that, as we know, can be life-threatening. So in the absence of an obstruction, these flare-ups usually last between 2 and 7 days. And that's why people think when we send them home on antibiotics, it was the antibiotics that caused the improvement, when in fact, they're gonna resolve in 2 to 7 days with or without antibiotics. And about half of these cats will have another episode within a year and many recurrences in a lifetime. So the treatment for these cats is not antibiotics. The treatment is pain management and increased water intake. We know that the amount of water that a cat drinks or the type of food that they eat does not cause this problem. But once the inflammation is underway, a concentrated urine is more likely to perpetuate the inflammation that's going on in the bladder, and dilute urine will ease that discomfort. Long term, treating the client is really important, and that means education. It makes perfect sense that a loving cat parent would be very afraid when they see their cat peeing blood. In a human being, peeing blood is rarely good news. And they're annoyed, and they just want it better, and they don't want their cat to be suffering. Again, are we going to go to the pharmacy for the drugs? Maybe, and maybe we're going to go to the diet. If we're going to have stones, diet's important, but if all we're seeing is crystals, is the diet necessary? I don't have that information, because I know that crystals can be normal and not the cause of the problem. And are these drugs going to cause the problem or treat the symptoms? Are we sedating away our cats? I say, again, we need to provide for their minimum needs. And the minimum needs are not a bowl of food, a bowl of water, and a litter box. They need the places to climb, places to hide, a way to hunt for their food, interactions that they like, that great big litter box. They need places to scratch, and we need to respect their territory. In Dr. Buffington's colony, when he did those things for the cats, he cured them. So we probably don't, in many cases, need to be giving those medicines. What we need to be doing is understanding how to meet the minimum behavioral needs of our cats, which lowers the stress and gives them more bandwidth to deal with the day-to-day life of being a cat. If we still need them, of course, let's try the meds before we're thinking about euthanasia, but most are not going to need it. And if we can point our clients to the information about why the minimum needs are important, what they're serving, and how to meet them, we're going to prevent a lot of pain, suffering, and death. We're also going to prevent giving antibiotics that we don't need, which are going to cause antibiotic resistance and not treat the problem. I like to talk about this trigger stacking, because to me, this really helps me understand it. It also helps me understand my day. But if you are a cat and your minimum needs are not being met, so you have no way to hunt, you have nowhere to hide, your litter box is ridiculous, you have this tiny scratching post of cardboard, which cardboard is a lovely scratching substrate, but what a cat needs is to be able to get a full body scratch, and most of these tiny flimsy scratching posts will just slide around all over the floor. The cat can't ever get that nice good grab on it that it needs, and we're just not meeting their minimum needs at all. So they begin and end every day hanging on by a thread. They are as stressed as they can be just by waking up in the morning. Then you get the new puppy, and you also choose to renovate your bathroom, and you have Mr. Contractor coming in every morning and you have all this added stress in the house, then you're going to end up with an episode of urinary disease and maybe vomiting hairballs and maybe getting an upper respiratory infection and maybe having a flare-up of a skin disease or stomatitis because you just didn't have any reserves to manage this new stress. What if we were meeting the minimum needs of that cat? It had places to climb and hide. It had a way to hunt for its food. There were separate territories meeting the minimum needs of all the cats in the house. They had the litter box that they need. They're chill. They're relaxed. They have everything that they need. So now you get a new puppy. Oh, okay. Well, that's annoying, but I can go up in my cat tree and get away from him. And I'm okay. And now you're going to renovate the bathroom, but I can just go scratch on my scratching post that actually I can get a good grab on and pull and get this energy out, and he'll go away. And I can hide if he's scary, and I don't have to worry about him because I have this extra bandwidth, this buffer of resources to manage my stress. And I don't have a urinary episode, and I don't start vomiting hairballs, and I don't get stomatitis. I get to be healthy because I had the bandwidth to manage. So it's probably not a UTI, and it's time to start thinking outside the box. So I am interested if anyone has any other questions for me.
What do you think about Feliway?
So I think it's great. I think that it adds to a minimum environment, and you can use it in a lot of different situations to bring down their stress. But for a cat, perceiving that stress is multifactorial. So we're not resolving a problem. We're sort of tricking them into saying things aren't the way you want them to be, but it's okay. Here's another signal that everything's okay. So I prefer to actually make everything okay and then use the Feliway as an extra signal that, no, really, you can relax here. But let's meet their minimum needs instead of putting a Band-Aid on it.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions you want to put forward? Give them. Please clarify Crystalade or Cystade. I'm sorry.
Can you spell it? I don't understand the question.
It is Cystade.
I'm not familiar with it.
If you have more clarification on that, Ronald, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know what you're asking me. I'm not familiar with that term. But there's always stuff for me to learn. So if that is a thing, I'm going to go learn about it tonight.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Well, I want to take this time and thank you, Dr. Bales, for spending time with us tonight. I want to thank all of you out there that have joined us tonight. I hope that you will join us tomorrow night when we have Dr. Emily McCobb. talking about using quality of life as an assessment tool in clinical practice. I will be sending out RACE certificates within a week, so don't get panicked if I don't send them out immediately. We do have RACE approval for all of our webinars this week, so very much appreciated. There's one other question for you, Dr. Bales. Any good cat litter that you would recommend?
Funny you should ask. I'm launching a cat litter in a few weeks. Actually more like towards the end of the summer. But I feel really strongly about going back to the science of what a cat needs. So for the most part, we want to think about no scent at all if we can. We want to think about their paws. A cat's paws are really, really sensitive. And so we want it to be as soft as possible. Stepping on something that is hard and large is hard for them. So clay litter is really nice and soft on their paws as opposed to like a pine pellet. But there's pluses and minuses to all those things, but soft on paws. And one way to check that, this is really cool. Take your litter and put it on a paper plate or on a desktop or countertop, and then roll your forearm, the soft part of your forearm, back and forth over it. And that's a good estimator for what it feels like to your cat to walk on it. And if you think about it, if it hurt your feet every time you went into your bathroom, you might go pee outside, you know? So that's something to think about. So for the cat, they want clean, so clumping, and that it can be easy for you to maintain. There's research that cats really object to just the chunks of stuff in their litter box, even more than the odor, which is super interesting to me. So we want something that we want to work with and clean it at least once a day, scoop it out at least once a day, and soft on paws and no odor. For me, I also like something that's really light, and I keep the litter box. I told you we shut the doors for the cats to hunt in my kids' rooms. And so they each have a bathroom, and I like to be able to just carry a litter box that's lightweight over to the toilet and scoop and flush, and I can clean my litter box in like 30 seconds. So I like flushable and I like lightweight. And I have been thinking a lot about the environment also. And, you know, there's some things that it's really hard to make environmentally sound, but things that we use that are consumables that we use a new thing every single day, I really think a lot about the environment. And did you know that clay litters are actually strip mined? I didn't know that. So they're natural, but it's not great for the environment of how we have to collect it. And it's not renewable. When we take it, it's gone. So I've been working on a cat litter that is made from a plant, made from only that plant. So there's no perfume, no chemicals, no dyes, super lightweight, soft on paws, and clumps really, really well. And for me, flushable, so I don't have to walk all around my house with a cat litter bag. And I did it. So you can look for, those are the criteria, and you can look for that in other products. But stay tuned for Dr. Bales' OneSource litter that should be coming out in August.
All right. Ronald did reply back. Feline Cystaid Plus capsules are a nutritional supplement for the management of lower urinary tract function in cats to help maintain a healthy bladder. The signs of bladder inflammation can include blood in the urine, urinating more frequently, or showing signs of pain and difficulty urinating.
So it's not a product I'm familiar with, but I'm really excited to know about it, and I'm going to go read about it. And I would say I want to that is something that can manage the symptoms. It sounds like, I don't know the product, so I'm going to go learn about it. But I want to prevent the cat from being so stressed that they have the symptoms. So I'm going to go back to the beginning about meeting the minimum needs of places to climb, places to hide, a way to hunt, blah, blah, blah. I hope I've repeated that list enough times tonight. And anyone who wants it, I can make available, Julie, we'll have to figure out how to do this, but I can get a PDF of my handouts of people versus cats in how differently we approach our needs and the minimum behavioral needs of cats. I can distribute that handout and I hope everyone will share the heck out of it. I like to start at the beginning and treat the cause, not just this, I hope we never get the symptom. I hope I never need that product. But if I do need it and I'm there, I'm going to go learn all about it because it's new for me. So thank you for sharing.
So they would also like it if you could share or they could see your DIY cat tree.
Oh yeah. You know, for some reason, Julie, I'm probably doing something wrong, but all I can see is my slides. Can you see me?
Yep, I can see you.
Oh, good. I can't see myself, which is for the better. It's not very it's not very tidy right now, but you'll get to see my squalor. So I can't see what you're seeing. Can you see this shelf thing?
Yep.
Okay. So I just bought this white shelving unit and I liked it because it's a little, I don't know if you can appreciate it from that angle, but it's a little bit tiered like a wedding cake. So the bottom is bigger and it gets smaller as you go up. So the cat can actually jump from one to the other if they want to. I'm not really power tool friendly yet. So I wasn't going to drill holes and I'm not even sure this thing would hold together if you drilled holes. So I wanted some way that it was graduated and I didn't want to pay a lot of money. I have to go back and look. It was $28 or $35 or something for this thing that was really easy to put together. And so this is the structure. And then I have all my stuff up here. I got carpet squares that were remnants off of eBay that were really cheap. And they have an adhesive on the bottom. So let's try to see if I have the whole square somewhere else because they came in like a 24 by 24 square, but I could just cut them really easily with a X-Acto knife, and it's not perfect, but it was really easy to do because the cats way prefer to have this kind of sisal feeling than, you know, a hardwood. I like cardboard. That's another option, but I couldn't figure out how to get the cardboard there to just stay nice. And these are holding up great. Even with food particles, it's really easy to vacuum all that because I feed them up here. I use these different feeder things that I've made to feed them. And I have another one over here. I don't know if I'm gonna slide you around here. You get to see all of my mess. So I have 2 cats, so I have at least 2 climbing resources. And then at the bottom here, I used a glue gun and I got this sisal rope that was super cheap off of Amazon, I think. And I just put a little hot glue on the wood here and then wrapped the sisal up so that I have a built-in scratching post also. I'm gonna tell you, that took a little more time than I had hoped. So if I was gonna do this part again, I would look for a larger gauge of larger diameter on the sisal because it's a lot of wrapping. And I think it would have been just as good if I used something more rope-like that would have taken a fraction of the time. But, you know, live and learn. I was really happy with my carpet squares. I'm really happy with the bookcase. And I learned something about sisal. So that's my DIY there. And I think total, I spent maybe $40 a piece. And I really like the looks of it. For me, the classic carpet cat tree isn't my favorite. And the things that I really like are like $400 or $500. So I'm really happy for me with the looks of it. And I can actually, if you want, also make a list of the criteria. I think understanding what the cat wants and then finding a way to give it to them, it doesn't have to be expensive.
Perfect. So, Dr. Bales, I will make sure that I get those handouts from you, and I can send them around when I send out the CE certificates for Raise.
Great.
I also want to make sure that we thank Royal Canin
Yeah.
because this would not be possible without their support and sponsorship of these webinars.
Thank you, HABA, so much. And there's so much to be gained by being a part of HABA. So I hope people will go over and join up with HABA. And yeah, I want to say thank you to Royal Canin also. Yeah, Julie, I want to say one more thing because I'm always that one more thing kind of person.
That's all right, go right ahead.
When we talked about cats being solitary survivors and being programmed to know that no one is coming to help them, that also means that when we introduce something new, their reflex is to say, I hate that, that might kill me. So it's really a bummer to cat parents because we'll go buy something that we get all excited about and we read all this cool stuff about, and then we go home and give it to our cat and they're like, nope, I hate that, and they want to go be in the bag. We have to understand that they're programmed to actually literally think everything is going to kill them first. So it's really not gratifying to bring home something new to your cat because you think they hate it, I made a mistake, I'm an idiot for spending money on my cat again. Whereas when we bring home like anything I keep insulting Labrador retrievers tonight. I have one, that's why I always talk about it. He's actually a mix, but I can bring him home anything and he's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And that makes me feel good because I succeeded and he's happy, which makes me happy. And I feel like I had a good use of my money and all that stuff. And we don't get that immediate reward from our cats. The thing I want people to understand is that doesn't mean the cat doesn't like it or isn't going to think it's the best thing ever. We need to give them time. And if we can use what we know about cats, that it will succeed quicker if we make it smell like them. So let's say I brought home even this cat tree, right? Or one of my feeders. I would go to I use a Sleep and Go all the time. Sorry, this is not very delicate here. I use my Sleep and Go all the time. My cats want to be in it all the time. So that means it has their happy smell inside, and I put food in here for them. So I would take my new thing that I bought and rub it around in here because it's going to get their smell and happy pheromones on it. And then if it's food or not food, if there's any way I can put something delicious on it, in it, with it, to or catnip, to give them some sort of exciting thing that will override the natural fear, your thing is going to succeed much, much better. So I want people to understand when you get the new thing home and your cat doesn't go berserk for it, it's not your fault. It's not that it's a bad product. It might be a bad product, but try those steps first and be a little bit patient. And being a solitary hunter, a cat doesn't always want to investigate something while you're around. So you might just put it out overnight when they can be exploring things alone. And then you could come out the next day and that thing that they thought that wanted to kill them is now their favorite thing they ever got. And you get that, you finally get the Labrador Retriever feeling, but it's going to take you a little bit.
You have so much great information, Dr. Bales. Thank you so much again to you and Royal Canin and all of you for joining us tonight. Please have a good evening and hope to see you tomorrow night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Thank you, Royal Canin.